I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Thursday, April 9th with news headlines from Arkansas. Governor Asa Hutchinson called in the press this morning to assess the recent legislative session, and you might not be surprised to find out he thought it went pretty well for him. He had quite a successful session, and I think by standards of passing most of his agenda, you'd have to say that's correct. You can read our blog for David Coon's lengthier explanation of everything the governor had to say about his successes, but I boiled it down a little bit. This is what I see. The private option, the expansion of Medicaid under Obamacare, it's going to continue in Arkansas. His budget depends on it. They'll call it something different. They'll add some measures that'll probably punish poor people, but he needs some money. It's going to continue. The 10 Commandments, he's for them on the Capitol. He thinks that religion has a proper place in Arkansas, even if it is of just the dominant conservative Christian religion that gets its symbols on the Capitol. He didn't talk about putting any kind of Muslim monument there. The Religious Freedom Act, so-called, he's happy with the way that turned out too, because it became clear that he was far more interested in religious interests, again, those conservative Christian interests, than he was in protecting the rights of gay people. An executive order on non-discrimination against gay people, not going to happen. Asa Hutchinson has no interest in it. Executions, he's for them and looks forward. That perhaps is too strong a way to put it, but is ready for executions to begin again in Arkansas. And he's happy, in fact, that the state seems to be reneging on agreement about privacy rights on the sources of these drugs. So there have been a lot of changes. Asa Hutchinson says these things very pleasantly. He's a nice person. He comes off moderate seeming, but if you read his words closely, he's no moderate, that's for sure. But I think that's what people elected. There's a big fright. One thing he mentioned in passing today is that he's going to move quickly to name 3 special justices to the Supreme Court to consider this question of just exactly which Supreme Court justice should hear the case over same-sex marriages in Arkansas. This has turned into a giant controversy and embarrassment to the Arkansas Supreme Court. Yesterday, Chief Justice Jim Hanna and Justice Paul Danielson recused from the case. They said the majority had cooked up a scheme to just delay the case until after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled. Judge Danielson went so far as to suggest that perhaps it was even unethical what had gone on in trying to delay this case. Justice delayed is justice denied, particularly if it's being done for ulterior political motives. But that case will be delayed. No news on that yet. A funny note on the 10 Commandments issue, a Kentucky law blog turned up the interesting item that actually the bill that creates his 10 Commandments monument in Arkansas lays out 11 commandments in the way Jason Rapert wrote them down. We're just lucky, I said, that he didn't include that 12th commandment of people of his ilk, which is that you must not treat gay people equally, although they say their Bible does say that too. On the gay rights front, there was a great letter that went to members of the Episcopal Church in Arkansas from their bishop. And he said that he'd been asked for the governor what else he had to say about the issue, and he told the governor he needs to do more to explicitly enact some protections against discrimination against gay people in employment and housing and other areas of human endeavor. A good thing to see. The Catholic bishop, on the other hand, I see has written that the governor was wise and prudent, and the Catholic bishop seems to also have no interest in enacting legal protections for gay people in employment. So that's a sad note. A lot of news is developing on the local public school front. Layoffs continue to be learned about in the Little Rock School District as it adapts its budget to meet shorter times. There was a long discussion yesterday at the State Board of Education about people who'd like to drop out of the Pulaski County School District. People are picking over the carcass of this district. Sherwood would like to get out. Maumelle would like to get out. What they want to do is just leave a remnant district that's poor, largely minority, and probably couldn't exist. All of this is going to make it hard for the school district to pass a bond issue that it desperately needs. All of this is going to make it hard for the district to meet its obligations under federal court orders on desegregation efforts. John Walker is going to be back in court next week to try and hold the state accountable. I think we're seeing a backing away from the state from its commitments to desegregation. It thinks the court's going to allow it to get away with it. Perhaps the courts will. I think as little has been done in 2 months by the state to deal with poor schools in the Little Rock School District, you have to begin to conclude that this was really a control issue. The state didn't want a majority black school board running the district. They got rid of the school board. They haven't yet gotten rid of anybody else, including all the people that are directly responsible for the schools that are supposedly failing based on test scores. 2 Conway Companies, Innovo and Privacy Star, both connected to former Axiom officials, announced today that they'd be moving from Conway to Little Rock's River Market. Charles Morgan, the former Axiom CEO, said this is a great place to build tech companies because of all the other tech park developments that are envisioned here. Good news for Little Rock, not so good for Conway, which had gotten some state money to help lure these companies to Conway in the first place. But that's the name of competition. There's Mark Stodel, the mayor of Little Rock, perhaps is going to have to tamp it down when he talks about North Little Rock luring things away from Little Rock now that he's lured a couple of big businesses away from Conway, or at least he will claim he lured them away. We turned up an interesting little story yesterday on the Arkansas blog. Leslie Rutledge, elected Attorney General, ran on her record as an experienced trial lawyer. She's had about 10 jobs at least in the last 14 years since she became a lawyer. Her ethics report, which recently became available online, showed that in private legal practice last year, she made somewhere between $1,000 and $12,000. Not exactly a booming legal practice, but good news for her. That job just got a big pay raise. She now makes $130,000 a year. She may have enjoyed the biggest pay raise of any public official in Arkansas this year on a percentage basis. So that's some good news for somebody. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.